update, and we do know that at least 2 juveniles were shot, and waiting to hear their condition as we get this update, Steve, perhaps from law enforcement. We'll get an update on the shooting victims.
Charles, we're going to go to Ben Jordan here in just a second, but I'm told that ATF is now responding to the scene. I just got a text from the spokesperson for Sheriff Lucas that she describes the sheriff's office supporting the Wauwatosa Police Department's active response to the shooting incident. So I'm not sure what we mean by active response here, except for what the words mean, that something is still actively taking place here at the mall. Most certainly looking for a suspect. We don't know anything beyond that, but the Wauwatosa Police active response is the phraseology being used by the spokesperson for the Milwaukee County Sheriff. And just as we pulled out there, you can see just how large of a footprint we're talking about here for law enforcement as they are still on the scene here with what appears to be an active situation with this investigation. I promised you Ben Jordan. Let's get to him now.
Yeah, Stephen, Charles, right now you are looking at a live picture of a mall entrance right next to Macy's. You can see several dozen police officers, sheriff's deputies standing right there. Not too much different going on outside. Other law enforcement agencies are starting to show up. The same massive police presence outside. As I mentioned in my last live shot, they have moved us back. We are standing across the street right now as they expand the perimeter for their investigation. Stephen, Charles.
All right, Ben Jordan, thank you. We're also watching the site of the news conference. We're expecting a news conference with law enforcement about 45 minutes from now at Mayfair Mall. It'll be the first official word, the first chance for reporters to ask questions of law enforcement. The only thing we know from Wauwatosa PD is they're actively investigating an incident at the mall. Again, we know from the mayor that shots were fired inside the mall. A number of people were hit. We again know of no fatalities inside the mall. Yes, and as we expect, Wauwatosa would be the lead agency, lead investigators on this case, but they're getting a lot of support and a lot of help from other local law enforcement. We've had a chance to talk to a number of people who were inside or came to the mall because they knew of someone inside who had been shot. And we want to listen into one interview from Adriana just within the last few minutes.
My concern for my uncle was the main thing because I knew he got shot, but I didn't know anything about my cousin at all when I got here. Literally the whole ride up here, I was just scared and nervous because I didn't know what was going on exactly. Till literally I got out, then I spoke to my cousin, finally called back. He's like, I'm fine. My uncle got shot. He's like, uncle got shot twice in the leg. He's like, other than that, he's like, he's fine.
And seeing just, this large, massive law enforcement presence and knowing your cousin's still inside and trying to be patient, just what are the other emotions that are kind of running through you at this moment?
Anger, to be honest, because this is kind of stupid why people would do this. Like, just run into a crowd of people and just start shooting for no reason. It doesn't make no sense to me. I'm concerned about my cousin, of course, but at the same time, I'm furious about this incident. It's like, why would you do that? Why would you put people at risk? You got kids, toddlers, little babies that don't deserve this.
And that is one of the people that we had a chance to talk to about what his uncle endured while inside the Mayfair Mall. And this has been the scene for the last 2+ hours outside Mayfair Mall, where a number of people that we're told have been shot, and that law enforcement is still on the scene to give us an update sometime within the hour that we will get our first look at what law enforcement says happened there and where they now stand on this investigation, Steve.
I can only imagine what it's like to be hanging in that limbo, Charles, of not knowing where your people are or what their condition is. So our heart goes out to him. We've also heard from a number of people who were working inside the mall the time the shots were fired, around 10 minutes to 3 this afternoon. We've spoken with a number of them. Let's listen to one now.
The first thing I saw was a bunch of people running. I work at the Cinnabon on the corner there, so we have big windows, and I just saw people coming around the corner from K's there on that corner, like literally running, like almost in a track meet. And then I heard bow, 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 bow. So I kind of knew somebody was running from something. I just wasn't sure what it was. Obviously a gunshot. but I didn't know if we were a threat, if he was running through the mall shooting people, or had a target in mind. I wasn't quite sure.
And that is some of the sound that we have been hearing from eyewitnesses who were inside and were able to get out safely. Let's go out to Adriana Mendez. Well, we thought we were going to have Adriana, who has been able to talk to a number of people who either knew someone who was inside and were able to get out safely, or someone who had been shot. We are trying to find out the number of people who have been shot. The best indication we have gotten is that there are multiple shooting victims. The number seems to change a little bit depending on who's doing the counting. So we're waiting for an official number from law enforcement. Ben Jordan has been on the scene as well. You've had a chance, Ben, to talk to a number of people. What's the situation there now?
Yeah, Steve and Charles, we've talked to several people who are not only waiting for their loved ones to come out, but also a couple people who were inside at the time, heard the shots and ducked for cover. A lot of anger, frustration, and people just being flat out scared while they were inside hearing that happen. The one shopper who says she was right inside the entrance to Macy's on the inside of the mall says the shooter was right outside of that entrance when that person opened fire. She didn't see any victims go down. As we know, there are multiple, but she just ducked for cover knowing that her life was in danger at that moment. Then we hear from parents and uncles and aunts who are here to pick up their loved ones who are right there in that situation, waiting to pick them up and bring them home and talk them through what happened. They are still inside talking to police right now as part of the investigation. So a very, very scary situation for all involved. Steve and Charles.
Yeah, Ben, I go back to, I think you talked to a person named Juan who was trying to connect with, I believe, his daughter who was inside. And, you know, it's a thing that any parent could understand, that waiting and wondering what's going on. And he was trying to call her. What was the situation there? He was not able to get in touch with her by phone?
Yeah, Juan says his daughter dropped her phone as she was running. She was able to find someone else with another phone to call them and let her parents know that she was okay, but very close to the situation, heard about a dozen gunshots, thankfully is okay. They're just waiting here now to pick her up.
A lot of parents in that situation as the Mayfair Mall employs a lot of people, especially Steve, as you mentioned, ramping up for the holiday season.
Charles, we're getting a little more insight from police on what is actively happening at the mall from what they have asked us to do. Thanks to our colleagues down at WMAQ in Chicago, we now have a helicopter flying over the scene. We have a number of cameras giving us live pictures from around the scene. We have been asked by police to not broadcast tight live shots of anything. We can only, we've been requested by police to only show wider shots of what's going on. That tells me that police are still actively searching for a suspect. They're actively moving around in ways that they do not want someone to be able to see if they're watching our live coverage right here. So we are going to be respectful of that. We're going to keep our pictures as wide as we can while still giving you the perspective of what's going on out there. Rebecca Clough at the hospital at Froedtert Medical College, Children's, that whole complex there, just a stone's throw away from the mall. Rebecca?
Yeah, Steve and Charles, this hospital complex, when we arrived here, we could see some vehicles, some law enforcement vehicles that had their lights on heading this way. About a half an hour later, maybe even an hour at some point, we saw multiple ambulances leave out kind of the area behind me, and that's the entrance to Children's. And if you know how the ambulance system works at Froedtert, usually the ambulances kind of go around the corner. So it appeared to be that some of the ambulances left from Children's Hospital. It looked like some other ambulances left from Froedtert. Obviously, we're in the middle of a pandemic, so we're not sure why all of these ambulances were here and law enforcement vehicles, but we did speak with Freighter and Children's Hospital officials, and they did tell us that in a statement that shortly after 3 today that they were notified there was a shooting at Mayfair Mall, and both hospitals had their trauma teams ready to go for victims. Now, I have been asking them how many victims, how many at each hospital. They would not give any numbers, but we know there is at least one victim either at Freighter or at Children's, or more victims. They wouldn't give us a specific number at one of these hospitals that they are taking care of right now. And as we've heard from law enforcement and from witnesses on the scene, people who did leave in stretchers were talking and appeared to be okay, and nobody has died that we are aware of from this incident. So the victims most likely are here at these hospitals behind us, where they're getting the care from doctors and hospital workers that were standing by ready to go for this mass casualty incident this afternoon.
All right, Rebecca Clough standing by at the hospital complex not far away from Mayfair Mall. Thanks very much, Rebecca. The company that owns Mayfair Mall issuing a statement. It's a brief statement through the Associated Press. Brookfield Properties is the mall owner. Part of their statement says they're disheartened and angered. Our guests and tenants were subject to this violent incident today. Charles, Mayfair Mall has a number of security steps in place. They limit who can be in the mall without adult supervision at certain times of the day. They have security crawling all over that mall. So this is a mall that has struggled with security over the past few years. And now today they've actually had what appears to be a mass shooting inside their mall.
We also reached out to Macy's, and they just released this statement saying, "We are saddened about the incident tonight at Mayfair Mall, as the safety of Macy's customers and employees is our top priority." And they went on to say that they're going to defer all comments right now to the Wauwatosa Police Department, and that's who we are also waiting for as well, for an update on what has been a tense and anxious afternoon, not only for law enforcement, not only for the people who work inside Macy's and Mayfair Mall, but for those who have loved ones who were inside, and those parents who have rushed to the scene to find their loved ones, or children who might have been in the mall at the time or worked inside the mall at the time. And so we can only imagine when we heard from people who were inside or were just trying to get out as fast as possible. Anytime you hear that gunfire going off and people screaming and running and trying to get out, you can only imagine the fear that's running through them when you hear that inside a store. Steve?
Charles, earlier we heard from Stephen Humphrey. Ben Jordan, I believe, interviewed him as he was waiting to get reunited with somebody inside the mall. Let's listen into Stephen Humphrey and Ben Jordan's conversation from a bit ago.
A guy apparently walked in Macy's and just started opening fire on people. And as he walked out into the mall area, he started shooting at everybody who was walking through it, and people just started running.
Now, you said that you heard shots?
Yeah.
How many shots did you hear when your daughter called you?
2.
You heard 2 shots?
Yeah.
And then it stopped?
Yeah, her phone went out. They took off running. So.
What was going through your mind at that moment?
Safety. Hoping that she was safe. Hoping that I could get to her. Trying to figure out, when I was a teen, which way could I sneak in this mall and get to her? As I'm driving here, trying to see if I can get past these police and get in there.
Again, it's Stephen Humphreys, obviously concerned about the fate of a loved one somewhere inside Mayfair Mall. We know police are inside the mall interviewing people. They're also inside that mall trying to find the suspect in this shooting. Again, no fatalities to report at